terms of working on the project. So up in the upper left-hand corner of my screen is Ben. So I'm going to ask him to start, and then we'll go on from there, and Ben will kick it off to the next person.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Wigton. I am representing Garmin in Salem. We, both the manufacturing, flight testing, engineering, software, hardware that we do here. And I represent Garmin on the Oregon Business Council's CTE STEM Employer Coalition Steering Committee. Yeah, that's a mouthful. I'm glad to be joining you today. Look forward to what we're going to learn. Next to me on the screen is Stephanie.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Stephanie Siebold with East Cascades Works. We're the Workforce Development Board for 10 counties east of the Cascade Mountain Range, and our main office is in Bend, Oregon. Let's see, how about Casey?
Hi, I'm Casey Andrew. I'm with the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. Dan took on my entire title, so it's long. Office of Community Colleges and Workforce Development, which means I work with career and technical education programs as an education specialist, also with non-credit programs and a lot of data stuff. And I'm going to hand it off to Jeanette.
Thank you so much. My name is Jeanette Shaw. I'm with Fourth, and we help promote transportation electrification. And I've been involved, I think, since 2015, when I also helped start Metro Steam STEM. So looking forward to working with you all and excited about the process again this year. And why don't I pass it off to, how about Kimberly?
Kimberly Capel. I'm the Executive Director at Eagle Ridge High School in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Oh, and I will pass it on to Melissa.
I'm Melissa Steinman. I'm currently a graduate student at Portland State University. However, I am also a endorsed CTE instructor and also endorsed in integrated science and math. I previously had submitted and was successfully awarded 2 CTE revitalization grants, and have since left public education to go back into research. And I'll hand it off to, let's see, Van at Lane.
Oh yeah, I'm Mark Vandenhende. I'm at the CTE division at Lane Community College, and I help oversee the Eugene and the Cottage Grove campuses. And I think Art's left.
Hi, I'm Art from Oregon Department of Education. I take care of health sciences and biomedical sciences for secondary to post-secondary transitions. I've been involved on the Revi team since 2014. And let's see, who's next? Stephanie.
Stephanie went. We have Avi and Linda, and then I'll cap it off.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. I apologize for no camera. Just before I entered into the meeting today, my Zoom decided to update itself, and it did so very badly. So I'm piecing it together with bubble gum and shoelaces here. But welcome. I'm from ODE. I've been working on Revite Grant in the background since about 2014. So it is kind of my happy place. But we're so happy to welcome you today. Thank you so much for stepping up to review. We could not do this important function without you. So thanks very much. And I'll send that back to Dan.
Thank you very much. Avi. And you're muted. The scourge of Zoom, yes.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Avi Zohar, Elk Creek Glass. I've been doing these grants. This is probably the 4th or 5th time I've read for this thing. Was formerly at Royal Community College, and now I'm retired and do Elk Creek Glass.
Excellent. Thanks to all of you for being here today. It's outstanding. We have a good mix of newbies and people who are in the category of grizzled veterans. My name is Dan Findley. I work in the industrial and engineering systems area, so I tend to interact with construction and metals programs, engineering programs, things of that nature. And I started out with Revite when I was in the community college line of work back in probably 2013. So I've been with it for quite a long time before I came to ODE. So we're again delighted to have you here today. We're going to try to make this as productive as humanly possible for you. And to kick things off, Linda has already dropped the link in for the slide deck. I will, because hey, it's an online Zoom meeting. We've got to have a slide deck, right? So I'll refer to that, use that a bit, and we'll try to keep things on track. Our goal is to make sure that we have enough time to talk about all of the aspects of it. Here shortly, I'm going to ask Linda to speak briefly about a very important part of the process, and that part of the process has to do with controlling for conflict of interest. Most of you have been grant readers of one sort or another. Some of you here in this program, some of you in other programs, so you understand that aspect of it. So in a moment here, I'm going to kick it over to Linda for just a really quick little 30-second spot on conflict of interest. And then we'll go ahead and dive into the rest of the presentation. So Linda, take it away.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, actually, everybody who is here today has already submitted their conflict of interest form. I'm going over my list just to make sure. So yes, we are good. So thank you very much. That's a very short spiel for me today. Back to you, Dan.
Wow, that was shorter than a 30-second commercial. I love it. Thank you very much, Linda, for that. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen out here. And we'll click through this presentation. You should be able to see the screen and the glorious introductory screen. So what we're going to really be focusing on today are some of the elements about why we do this, what this is all about, and the value that Revite adds. And we're going to do a little bit of tag teaming here. And I'm going to start out with the history and the purpose of Revite, and then I'm going to have Art talk a little bit about partnerships and the types of grants that we are pointing at in this particular iteration of the grant process, and then we'll go on from there. So first and foremost, this was created by legislative initiative, and grants have been awarded since 2011. The interest here, and those of you who have been involved with Revite, or those of you who know people who have been involved with Revite, know that there was an abiding interest among electeds to help to create or renew CTE programs of study that were linked to success and economic vitality. The real value of CTE, as you're probably quite aware, is that it provides individuals a way to determine how their aptitudes and interests fit together with opportunities in the world of careers. We like to think of it as careers in college or careers in post-secondary preparation, because as learners finish up in the secondary, they will move on, perhaps to a community college, perhaps to an apprenticeship program, sometimes directly to industry, but there will always be a continuous improvement cycle going on with individuals as they build through their lives. CTE is about what everyone does for work. People will ask, what is CTE? Is CTE construction? Is it automotive? Is it health sciences? It, in fact, is anyone, as we know, who leaves in the morning or in the middle of the night going into the world to trade on their skills, abilities, and aptitudes for the benefit of us all. So it's economic vitality and strong partnerships for all. The strong partnerships involve business, labor, industry, trades, and all of our education partners, no matter where they may be situated or what they may be doing. And since the inception of the grant program, there have been almost 150 grants awarded. Over 400 schools and programs have benefited from it. And there's been over $37 million in funding support to programs in the area. And this, again, since it's CTE, starts the arc with secondary, flows across to post-secondary experiences, and then on into career. The purpose of the grant, well, basically the program of study prepares individuals for success, future success in the areas you see noted in the first bullet. And the intent of the revitalization grant is to strengthen existing programs and create new ones. This came along at a time when some programs were falling into disrepair, either because instructors were not available, the key retired, or there were funding challenges. But it's really necessary to give individuals something that they believe in and that they can plug into when they're going through their education experience. Meeting workforce needs in high skill, high wage, and demand occupations. If you were familiar with the Carl Perkins legislation, you were familiar with the phrases high skill, high wage, and in demand. It used to be high skill, high wage, high demand. It's been modified in Perkins 5 for in demand. What it's really all about is making sure that individuals are prepared for something that has a future. No one should ever be stranded when he, she, or they go into a learning opportunity, and we shouldn't train people for occupations that have no future. And that's why the emphasis is on high wage, high skill, in demand, and that there's always a really strong relationship with partners who are not us, not those of us who are in education. Supports achievement of the Oregon diploma, and also, most importantly, addresses the needs of historically and currently marginalized youth, students, and families, including civil rights protected classes. And we like to emphasize that historically and currently marginalized youth and other populations include people who live in intergenerational poverty, who are in isolated rural situations, or are in inner urban or inner city situations where they don't have the opportunity to avail themselves of training and education programs that can provide options for them for the future. And that's why CTE is so very important. So I'm going to kick it now over to Art, who's going to talk to us a little bit about partnerships and also the types of grants that we're leaning into this time.
Thanks, Dan. There are 9 more areas that we're going to be scoring on your as part of your process here. Next, let's see, we're going to talk about partnerships first. This will correspond to an area in the RFA. So it suggests that you have a copy of the RFA and the scoring rubric with you. This is how well do they describe the partnerships? How are they going to be using the resources that are in their community, labor industry, community organizations? And this is something for you to look at in the application and then score, as we'll get into in a little bit, from 1 to 7. So you get the evidence of partnerships. Some will have letters. Some will have letters from, and you've seen this if you've done this in the past, from different industries in their area. This is a number of letters. There's no minimum that they have to have, but you might see some of those in there to kind of help you judge, is the partnership's going to be strong enough to sustain this relationship. And Linda just put up a link. Thank you for the RFA. If you'd like to have one of those available, or at least on your screen. Next slide there, Dan, please. The types of grants, really what we're having as a purpose for this grant is to develop a program of study. And we looked at it in the staircase approach. So if in fact the school does not have a program of study currently, the grant can be used to help them move to a startup position. A startup position is one that we have at ODE for program of study. It explains itself. Maybe not everything is in place. Maybe the curriculum isn't there. Maybe the building is not done yet. Maybe you're working with licensure on the teacher. This is a startup program of study that realizes there's holes in the application. So this is for the group of students, teachers, and parents in that school that want to start a CTE program and they're in exploratory phase. If they already have a startup, and we have quite a few in Oregon where they're at that first phase, then this grant can be used to move them on up to developing an approved program of study. And the last area is if they have an approved program of study, this is a chance to come to that highest quality, the upper step for a high quality program of study. And we have specific things set aside that help us judge when when a program of study has gone up to that extra high level, the varsity team, if you will. Link's not working. I'll make sure I work on that in just a second. So there's 3 types of grants. A single grant is $125,000. A collaborative grant used to be called a consortium grant. The maximum is $250,000. Next slide there, Dan.
And I just want to, as I transition to the next slide, make a quick comment about partnerships. We have, and we'll speak about the CTE Revitalization Advisory Committee here shortly. And some of you have either been involved with the committee or you have worked with people who have been involved with the advisory committee. And we talked extensively about partnerships, and the message there is the partnerships need to be authentic. They need to be such that the partnership actually helps the program and the school develop and expand. It's not simply hey, that's a really great idea, you should go do that, but it's this is a great idea, and how can we help you do that? So I'm going to, again, toss it back over to Art and let him continue. You're muted. There we go. Now you're back.
Got it. Okay. The process is we receive the applications. As of 5 o'clock yesterday, when the application process ended, I think we ended up with 66 applications. Those applications now are going through their magic with Linda, and when Linda introduced herself as behind the scenes working on this, she's very much in front of the scenes working on this. And it's Linda that puts all this together, gets everything ready for you as grant reviewers, and what you'll be receiving is an email that has everything in it, all the forms, the people that you're going to be reviewing, and also information you need to come together for a calibration meeting. This then goes to the CTE Advisory Committee, and this is the new advisory committee. They've met a couple of times already. So this is a brand new thing for us to have a CTE Advisory Committee for everything. In the past, we've had one that's just a Revite committee, but now they've taken on a different role with different members, and they're looking at all of CTE for us, so not just the Revite grants. And then from there, it goes to the last step. We take all this information after we get it from the CTE Advisory Committee and get it to our director, Colt Joe, who makes the final determinations. I can't give you any specifics because we don't have them yet, but I think out of about 66 applications, there's funding for about 7.3 million, 7.2 million, and we're probably at about 8.5 million. So it's pretty close, applicants to the amount of funds that are available this year. Let's see, I'll throw this back to Dan here for advisory committee recommendations then.
Thank you very much, Art. So the advisory committee recommendations for this cycle include such things as recognizing the value of CTE as a driver, the concept that giving individuals an opportunity to transition to career and post-secondary experiences for a purpose. That's really what CTE is all about, and also a focus on equity. There is an area in CTE known as non-traditional, generally 25% or fewer of a particular gender category identified in a CTE area. We usually think of males in nursing, females in welding. That's sort of the old comparator, although that doesn't necessarily hold as much as it used to. We still are very interested in making sure that as many people as possible get a chance to look at as many different options as they find intriguing, and that anyone can feel comfortable and satisfied moving in any of those areas. Sustainability, the partnerships need to be authentic. We talked a little bit, and you'll notice in the box on the far right, the very last bullet, partners who walk the walk are very important. So authentic partnerships, not just lip service, but authentic partnerships, community connections, and also that concept Art was talking about, building that varsity team. If you're going to build a varsity team, you need a farm team. You need to have a funnel. And with increasing interest and focus on being able to bring middle schoolers into these conversations for career education opportunities, building that funnel or that farm team, and that can be something that's done in partnership with a secondary school, with a Revite grant. So some of the grants that you see may include a high school program reaching down to the middle school to build a funnel reaching up to post-secondary partners to situate the completers in a place where they can continue to move forward and complete that arc moving from learner to earner. Smart money strategies. We talk in education a lot about braiding funding. Essentially, if you have multiple buckets of money, you should be able to pull those buckets of money together and use them to create synergies. And we encourage schools to use things such as High School Success or Measure 98 money, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act connections, STEM funds, STEM relationships, and then finally partnerships, which are, as you see here, all of these individuals and more, including people who live, work, and invest in the community. That's all part of the package deal. So there are some pieces of the pie that we want to make sure that you're able to access. And one of them is the request for application, or RFA. I'll just refer to it as RFA from now on out. And I can't see the chat. So if it's not in the chat already, if one of you would be okay dropping that in. We're not going to go through the RFA in painstaking details because it's lengthy. But what we're going to do is hit the high parts of it and give you an idea of the types of things that are expectations. Art will be talking about the scoring rubric here in a minute and the evaluation form, and then we'll start going through the grant vision and equity and things of that nature. There's also a separate scoring rubric, and my link isn't live. I'm going to get you connected to that. And we also will be sending out an email after this presentation, after this webinar is over, so that you have an opportunity to see all of these things up close before you actually have to use them in evaluating the grants. Evaluation form guides the process, and you already, I believe, have access to the slide deck link in the chat. Incidentally, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to raise a hand, and between and among all of us, we'll make sure that you get your questions answered. If there's anything we can't answer today, we will get back to you in the follow-up email and make sure that you have what you need. So next up, we're going to be talking a little bit about the scoring rubric. Art?
What you're going to have for each of the 11 areas that you're going to be scoring is a rubric, which gives you an idea of the question that we're asking. Like for this one, if you can't see this here, it'll be in your own there, but how does this project address the vision, our CTE vision? The high score is 7, the lowest score is 1, and we've given you, like with all rubrics, kind of a 1, 4, and 7 range there. This is important that you put down a score. We're going to be calibrating these scores later on with other people who are evaluating the same people that you're evaluating. But more importantly, if we go on to the next slide there, Dan, is with this form, meeting one of these 3, 7, and thinking about exactly where it goes. So at the beginning of each grant review sheet, it's actually a Google form. You're going to be filling out one for each application that you're going through. Have those things in front of you and then scoring them 7 to 1. Next slide there, Dan. Okay. This is what it'll look like on the grant form. It'll have our vision up on the top for grant vision. If we're talking about partnerships, as you see, we'll summarize that for you. Want to address the following goals. This is something for you to read through ahead of time, and you'll see after the first one, it gets a little bit easier. You read through this, and then you go through and see what they put down for grant vision, and that's where you give them the score of 7 to 1. On the next slide is equity. I'll let Dan take it from here, and I'll come back and talk about comments in just a minute.
Thanks, Art. So equity is of high importance to all of us and guarantees that everyone is able to participate fully in the economic life of the community and the civic life of the community. And we have an equity stance at ODE, and you can see it here in italics, essentially laying out the importance and the focus on ensuring equity for all students, including everyone, regardless of zip code, and providing rigor and opportunity for historically and currently marginalized youth, students, and families, really restructuring and dismantling systems and institutions that make it hard for people to be successful and to access those things that they need in order to be successful. Continued here, this is actually a piece of the puzzle from, or a piece of the form. Most pivotal question that you're going to be asking is, how will this project increase participation, support, and retention? And be thinking about how that would apply to virtually any student who would be interested in being involved with a CTE program, from an exploratory phase to a completer phase before transitioning to a post-secondary experience, whether that be a job or further training. You'll note here also the 3 bullets at the bottom identify specific activities with this project that are intended to recruit, intended to provide support, and intended to help retain. So those are some watch words and some key phrases that you'll be looking for, some key concepts you'll be watching for as you look at the individual grant applications and the way that these things have been articulated. Now, a bit more about partnerships. You want to say a bit more about this here, Art? I took my first cut at it, so.
You bet. With partnerships, again, we're looking for who are they going to be using in their community. The STEM hubs, some of you are involved with STEM hubs, are a very important partner. Workplace groups, the workforce groups in your different area, the Department of Employment, if you haven't contacted the Department of Employment yet, or if they haven't contacted them yet to see what is high level, high risk types of jobs. Sorry. Next slide there.
Sure.
As we said, there are 11 of these areas that you'll be evaluating. Project outcomes is the third one. The project outcomes should be clear and able to be met in the period of time that's left. These people are not going to be getting their grants really until when, Dan? Probably.
It will be into late winter. Is our best guess right now.
So even though it's a biennium grant, I think some of you who did it before remember that they don't get their money right on January 1st, the first year. We go through this whole process, and then by the time we get done and the money gets distributed, then they can start really on this. They've got a little bit over a year to accomplish this. So are the project outcomes clear, and are they obtainable? Something you have to be looking at. Next one. Progress marker and results, we've asked them to make sure that there are progress markers and that they put it in table F. This is something that you'll have access to when you look at the application. Want to make sure, again, those are reasonable, that when you go through them, yes, the dates may not be exact or whatever, but you're looking for more of a pattern. They have a nice, clear thought process for the progress marker and what kind of results are going to be expected in that period of time. Next. The next area is activities and timelines, and this is just really a combining of the two. This is what we're going to be doing. This is what we hope to get accomplished, and this is what the timeline is going to be. All of the CTE revitalization activities and purchases must be completed by June 30th. So in this area, it's up to you to kind of take a look and make sure that the things that they've put down will be completed, or at least they believe they'll be completed by June 30th, 2023. If there's questions with building permits, different things that may come up, these all have to be addressed in there. Next one.
Okay, I'm going to pause for just a second here and make a couple of quick comments. We did encourage, and you'll notice this when you read the RFA or the request for application for this grant program, that we asked that individual programs that were interested in doing capital construction projects, renovations of buildings and learning spaces, and purchase of vehicles that they consider to be essential for the work to be done, to please have a conversation with a representative of ODE, not for us to step in and say, that's a wonderful idea or that's a bad idea, don't do that, but simply to make sure that people were aware of such things as supply chain issues that may have an impact on things being delivered. There's also the issues around permitting, county approvals, municipal approvals, board approvals, things of that nature. And projects can be derailed or severely delayed because of those. Those of you who have been down that road understand this. And those of you who have basically purchased or built anything have had these experiences before. So we were trying to make sure that people were thinking about this. Also, there's a curious notation in here that student involvement begins no later than September of 2022. The rationale there is we would like to have the programs be able to pull together a year's worth of student experience with the work that happens underneath the grant before they do their final reporting and evaluation at the end of the grant period, and to be able to see what students are able to experience, do, learn, and put into practice, to have a full year of experience to do that, rather than trying to tuck it into one term where it's much harder to figure out how the students are progressing. So I'll kick it back over to Art, but I did want to throw those things in there for your consideration.
Great, thanks, Dan. Next slide there. In the design, we talked about this earlier, there's 3 different ways they can go, or a combination of these 3. They should have included in there whether they're a brand new startup, they're moving to a program of study from a startup, or if they're going to a high quality program of study. Next slide.
Okay.
Here you'll be looking for evidence that the program, whether it's a startup or whether they're moving it up or whatever, is for high skill, high demand, and high skill, high wage, and in demand occupations. And it says down here at the bottom, identify the high skill, high wage, and in demand occupations that are a target for this grant. The Department of Employment, Oregon Department of Employment, puts out a list every year of the high skill, high wage, in demand jobs. They can use that, part of that, as part of their justification, or if in fact it shows that there's not a need in their area for a certain type of occupation, but they found a way that there actually is. For example, here in Salem, if you look up anesthesia technology, it's a relatively brand new field, and Chemeketa offered a new program for anesthesiology technology based on the needs of the hospital who came to them. So they can use other things as part of proof for high skill, high wage, and demand. That'll be one of the areas. The next area you'll look at, slide there. Diploma connections. How will this project help all students meet the requirements of the Oregon diploma? This should be addressed. It includes such things as essential skills, academic support, and personalization of the education experience so that the student maintains all the connections they need and all the requirements to get a diploma. That has to be addressed in there. Next slide. Sustainability. Once this is done, once this 1 year or 2 year grant it actually is done, how will this grant be sustained? How will you continue to pay for the program of study, the teacher, any curriculum needs or upgrades? That's kind of some of the things that Dan was talking about. How will you be braiding Measure 98 funds or other funds into this project to make sure that it's going to be sustained? We don't want to just inject money, revitalize a program, and not have a plan. So that's the last part that you'll be looking at. Next slide, Dan. And then communication. We require every Revite grant recipient to submit at least one communication to ODE for the life of the grant. Communication can be that they were in a newspaper article, that they had someone from the local station come out and interview their students, radio. It could be any way that they want to communicate this to the public, and we'll work with them. This is really where I work with each grant recipient in ways to make sure that the public is aware of this. Well, they may have something in their plan about contacting legislators. People in legislation, senators and our House people here like to see their picture in the paper. And when they're supporting things like this through grants, it's a good idea to turn that around into a nice full circle. Thank you. Next slide, Dan. Go ahead.
There we go. Feedback for learning, providing information through the scoring guide process that individuals can use to understand how to improve, but it also provides a clear rationale or through line of thinking in terms of why you made the decisions you made. The commentary does not need to be outrageously extensive, but it should be succinct. It should provide the right balance of information. You'll see here oriented around the circle. It should be educative feedback. It should be sensitive to the individual needs of the writer or the project, understanding that we have a lot of schools, 197 secondary or high schools within the state. And when you start thinking about how many there are, very few of them are the same. So thinking in terms of what individuals start with as they build their program and where they're trying to go. They may be attempting to completely revolutionize the way that the school or their part of the school operates. So giving them feedback that is fitting and appropriate helps. Should reference a specific component of the application, not just this was a really great application or this was a so-so application, but what's going on there and specifics. Genuine praise, provide a model or example if you know of something that makes sense. And you won't be able to dialogue directly with the individuals who have developed these, but you can pose things in the form of questions and think abouts and wonderings where it would inspire individuals to look at what they've done and how they might approach it a little bit differently. So the feedback is important. Almost every grant cycle, there are a very, very small number of appeals where individuals wish to know perhaps why they weren't awarded. And it is much easier to, first of all, make a good, solid decision about the suitability of a particular program for a grant if there's plenty of information there. And then if conversations need to be had about a grant decision on appeal, it is similarly much more successful conversation-wise to have that information there to back it up. And that takes us to final slide, final screen. Those of you who are here today, we very much appreciate you being here, and you already know how to get a hold of us. I would keep this email address close, conveniently on your desktop or on your computer or whatever, in case you need to email us with a question. If you send to this address, you get the added advantage of being able to reach out to several of us simultaneously. So if one of us happens to be unavailable, someone else will be available to step in and answer your question. If we can't get you the question answered immediately, we will move with deliberate speed to get the information to you as quickly as possible. And so that is the end of the slideshow. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that I can see everyone. There are some things in the chat, and I'm guessing some of those are probably questions. So let's go ahead and have a look and see if there's anything we want to touch on. Looks like we've been nudging things in your direction. Do you have any questions?
I actually do, Dan.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm new to the process and looking forward to figuring it out. And one question I had was, amongst those of us that will be reviewing these, will each grant be reviewed? Like, so you mentioned there are 60 some grants or requests for grant. Will we each be reviewing each one of those, or will be a select grouping of those? I'm just curious how many persons will be involved in any one request.
Excellent question, Ben. And Linda put together a really neat summary for us internally. We've been watching, as Art was pointing out, we've been watching the grants come in, and as the grants fall into the bucket, we're thinking about how people can be best leveraged to get these evaluated. So we do have a plan. So I'm going to leave some space for Linda to talk about that for a moment.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, directly, Ben, it looks like right now each reviewer will be reviewing about 6, possibly 7, but 6 or 7 of the grants, not the whole 60 some. Don't. So breathe easy on that. But we'll be sending out links to each reviewer in an email, most likely Thursday, with the links to the grants in a Google folder for you to review. So at that point, if you've got any questions, go ahead and send us an email to that ODE CDE Revite address. But we're trying to get those to you as quickly as we can, but with a large number coming in. And as frequently happens with applications, a lot of them come in on the final day, which was yesterday. So we're processing as quickly as we can to get everything ready for you in folders, and we'll send out those emails as soon as we possibly can.
Great, thank you.
And I threw the email link into chat again. You've probably seen it several times, and it will be on the prominently displayed on the materials when you get your follow-on email. Other questions?
I have a
Dan,
question. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, have we figured out how long people are going to have those grants before we need them back?
What is our completion date? I want to say next Friday, but I'm not going to double down on that because I don't have it written down here.
It is, we're looking at the 21st, so it would be next Friday.
Great. Our hope was to get them into people's hands in such a way that you'd have a little bit of time over a weekend, and that you would also have a series of evenings and afternoons that you could, tuck the work into. So we're hoping that this will be a good way of setting it up. Other questions?
In the past, or the last time that I reviewed, we were paired with like someone with experience in public education and maybe a community partner like Garmin, and then maybe a legislator. Is that sort of the goal again this year? So there's a mix of perspectives.
That's it exactly, Melissa, trying to get a variety of minds around it so that it's not strictly an industry perspective or an education view on things. So you'll be on a mixed team. Other questions? Working on my wait time skills. I seriously used to wear a stopwatch when I taught middle school back in the dark ages. It did make a difference. Well, the good news is if you have questions, you have the materials that we'll be sending out in the follow-on email that will help you. The content of this presentation, and we did record this, you can go back and watch it again if you wish, and also the opportunity to email us with your questions, comments, concerns, and we can help you along the way. Each one of us has had the opportunity at one time or another to actually do grant reading for Revite, and I'm speaking of those of us with the state side, and we also have a great appreciation for the value that this brings by providing support for programs. Very, very important. Many students have benefited, and there's not a corner of the state, not a place in the state that hasn't had the opportunity to enjoy the impact of Revite over the years. So we're excited to keep it rolling, and we're so incredibly delighted and appreciative of your engagement, your time, your interest, and your enthusiasm around something that really does make a difference for, when you get down to it, all of us. So Art, Linda, Casey, any last minute comments from our side of the table? Our corner of the round table?
I'm sorry, just do not hesitate to contact us with that email address. There is no such thing as a stupid question. So feel free. We're here to help you out.
So with that, it's 10 minutes of the hour, so we'll give you back 10 minutes of your day that you can invest in some other way. We'll stand ready to answer your questions. Watch your email for news and information as we're rolling over the next several days. Again, thank you very much. Have a super afternoon, and go Revite.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care now.
Thanks.